What's up, Buffalo Bill fans? That didn't take long. I said to myself, every time I have my laundry done, I pay a service to do it. I'm like, something's gonna happen, and sure enough, I went and picked it up, and you know, alert, alert, as we all did. So Brandon Beane, kind of, had already been GM in waiting, if you will, but officially named the Buffalo Bills general manager today. I believe it's their 13th GM. I'm not quite sure of that, but I believe it's their 13th GM in the club's history. I'd have to look that up. Don't quote me on it. Um, yeah, and this is all in keeping with what Sean McDermott has preached from the day he walked in the door, was just everything being streamlined, aligned with what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. And that's just the way it's going to be at One Bills Drive. There's clearly a new order of things. The deck chairs have been completely cleared. All backdoor channels have been completely removed in a lot of ways. Maybe one loose end to tie up, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But and he's done. This wasn't just a guy coming in here saying, well, I'm going to hire my coaching staff, I'm going to implement my schemes, and may the best man win. This was a much heavier lift that I believe, even if this guy was able to bargain for power, I'm pretty sure he was, just given the situation the Pagulas were coming at it with Rex, the situation Whaley left them in after that disastrous press conference, and just all the wires being crossed in terms of no communication, or just people with their own agendas, whatever. That's old hat right now. And you can't blame him, but he's clearly come in and been able, so far, he's been willing and able to take on this lift, which is a heavy lift, because it's not as simply as coming in as the Buffalo Bills head coach and it's like, okay, here you're taking over the team with the longest running playoff drought in North American sports currently, 17 years. That's what you're doing. It wasn't as simple as that. It wasn't like, well, like I just alluded about hiring staffs, implementing schemes, and voila. No, he's made all different types of changes from day one, whether it's things, people want to, whatever, with the pool table, the video games, the mixing up of the locker room in terms of, it's no longer position specific. It's the messages. You're going to get to know your teammates. You're not going to be segregated or sequester yourselves to one area of the locker room. You're going to go out and you're going to get to know these guys. So that whole one thing, he wants it to actually be real. And other things, whether it was the director of player engagement, the team chat, like what we all know, all those things, all those little pieces, and then you go and you vaporize the entire personnel department, Whaley right on down, which pretty much severs any and all ties that Russ Brandon might have had or did have to having his 2 cents in football decisions. And that is huge, huge, because for too long this team was piecemeal together with just the buzzword in mind. There was no rhyme or reason for pieces A and B putting together, not with any foresight that they would get to see, just, hey, we'll figure it out as we go. And that just cannot be. It's just, so much has happened so fast with this team, and having some sort of, and I still believe, and he said this at the press conference the last time he spoke, McDermott. He was asked the question, do you still expect to be the one voice? And he said, as long as I'm head coach of this team, I do. So I still think Beane is going to take a backdoor role as general manager. I don't believe he's going to be speaking, if at all. If he does, it will be at McDermott's behest or McDermott's wishes. It's not going to just happen. He has a press conference scheduled for Friday at 10:30 a.m., so that's the first time us Bills fans will hear from him under the Bills banner. But having had that history with him in Carolina, long, 5-year relationship, working together directly or indirectly, that's very good. It's a very good thing to be able to come in and get that because you're just rekindling something. You're not trying to piecemeal things together like I just said about the Bills with everything, whether it was their personnel, players, the scouting staff, from this guy, from that guy. There's been no more of that, and that's going to be another big piece of this, is how do they put those staffs together now, pro and college personnel sides. How do those directors of those sides get filled out? What type of staff is this going to be? It's going to be a bigger staff. It's going to be more of a Spartan scouting staff, who, the titles and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't just as simple as, hey, it's a new GM. No, this is a whole just basically a whole crew that has to be brought in, which is good. And the one person I think that has to be worried at One Bills Drive is Jim Overdorf, given Beane's history with player negotiations, contract structuring, and managing and developing budgets. Not saying it's been all Overdorf's fault. A lot of the stuff he's done was at the behest of, whether it was Whaley or Rex getting the ownership to do something he wanted, or whether it was whoever. It's still, the cap has been mismanaged and it's been put in a bad place for the last few years now. And with no franchise quarterback in place, and that should not be. That should not be. And then you look at all the shortcomings in the draft, whether there's no players left from the 13 draft. Hell, in a year or so, there might not be any players from the 14 draft. So, yeah, that's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. A lot of it stems from just all the changes at the head coaching position. But now I feel that there's going to be a guy in place for at least 4 years. I believe they're going to give this guy 4 years. And people are already talking about, well, if it doesn't work at 2, I honestly feel that they are tired and that they need to let something fester and germinate in that building for a good amount of time before it's proven wrong. You can't just do all this, preach all this, and then just want to squash it. I shouldn't even be talking about this right now, but he hasn't come in and been blustery, braggadocio, unlike Rex, who didn't even know who his quarterback was, his running back was, or any of that sort of stuff. But, get ready for the playoffs, we're going type deal. And I know that sounded good, but it was not really realistic at the time. We didn't even know who Tyrod Taylor was, let alone a true bona fide franchise quarterback. So this whole season, I think, going forward for McDermott's going to be, not just a whole learning experience for him being a head coach and just managing all the different areas, because he's chosen to not call plays and stuff, but a lot of it's going to be an observation period. It says who else does he want to change within the organization? Does he want to keep the strength coach next year? Does he want to make some more tinkerings to the other parts of the training staff? And when I say training staff, that's not strength and conditioning staff. That's like rehab and ascertaining injuries and treatments, or how to proceed with those, whether to give a player a green light or thumbs up, thumbs down, things like that. Does he want to make more changes in those areas? And players, it's player driven. You know, this is what it's all driven by, is the football team. And it is, without question, I don't think any of us can question it. I don't care what side of the ledger we stand on with McDermott. This is a football team and organization directed by him. That's just, the Pagulas have empowered him to that end. So he's going to get his chance to sit back and observe these players and say, well, who's a guy that's truly one with us? Who is this guy? How is his preparation on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis, a monthly basis? Does the fire stay blue all the time? Because that's the hottest part of the fire. Or is he one of those guys who runs hot and cold when things aren't going good? He tends to shut down or bicker and moan at other guys and he's just going to be, I think, the whole season taking mental notes, and that's why that's why I said we're going to get to a point in the season, because I think we have to temper expectations. I don't know how this season is going to go, but I don't expect this Bills team to make the playoffs. I don't expect them to be in the doldrums of the NFL either, but I think that he's going to be busy ascertaining, like, okay, this is a guy I can win with, I can go forward with. This guy, you could just see whoever this guy is, said player, you could just see him cut week 1, week 2, whenever McDermott decides, well, this guy is just, he's not worth having here. And there's clearly no favorites on this roster. There's nobody I feel that he is currying favor with him. Really, nobody. I don't care if it's guys he brought from Carolina. I don't care if it's guys that they've signed via free agency, or guys that he decided to keep on roster. I just don't think that's the way this guy's going to play it at all. I think he's just all about whatever's best for the team, and that's definitely a good thing. But Beane, a guy that we know is going to be very much in line with McDermott, and McDermott with him, and how they fill out the scouting staff. Like I said, important how they decide on picking players, because that whole way, we have a GM in place, we're kind of get used to the way they do things, their order, their ways of doing business and stuff. When with Knicks and with Whaley, it was more or less, well, let's just get a guy and we'll see. We'll kick the tires on a Sean Merriman, or we'll kick the tires on a Reggie Bush, or we'll, like a Vince Young type of thing. Just, there's always this ass grab for like something that was a well that dried up elsewhere, but maybe we can sink a few more shafts and see if there's not something left in there type of acquisition, where it was just no, this just not smart. So I think the ways of doing business are going to be vastly different. Draft day, obviously, the way we saw the Bills do business just a couple of weeks ago, vastly different, and that was a good thing. As we all know, landed our football team a 2 firsts in next year's draft. So that type of capital is worth its weight in gold in the world of football. So I think that Beane, coupled with McDermott, hopefully can get this thing in time moving forward. That the trajectory is doing this, and not this or a spike and then a rapid decline, like when the Bills would start off 5-2, or I believe it was 5-1. There would just be that huge spike, and then just boom, they just had no ways, no understanding, or no of how to quell that, to stop the ship from sinking. So I really hope this is just a sign for better things to come, and I have to be optimistic. I have to be. I know some people that are cynics, and I understand the Bills have beaten the cynic into us. I can't. I've been a cynic to a certain point, but I'm of the thinking of whether it was with Rex. You saw me with Rex. You saw me with even with Marone or Gailey. I'm like, well, I'm willing to think this might work until you start to prove me wrong. So I'm willing to believe that this could work. I'm willing to buy in that this could work, given all the changes that they've made to this point. In the infantile stages, it's only been 4 months. I believe he's been on the job as head coach, and the amount of changes that have been made. Whether just getting just everything looks like that's been done, and to me, is for the betterment of the football team, the betterment of the organization, for the interim and the long term. So that's huge for me. Our worst case scenario, knowing everything that I know, is that Lynn would have just been named head coach, Whaley'd still have the job, and honestly, I think it would be status quo with the Bills right now. It would. I don't think there would. I don't know what the hell they would try to be pitching to Bills fans to buy into that, because I had, just the thought of that just scares that, because I think of, I don't know, I just think of, status quo wasn't cutting it, and I don't think those people had the gumption or the fortitude to make all these changes that needed to be made. I don't think they had the power to do it, and I don't think they had the gumption to do it. And who knows, maybe, we had reports a few months ago that there was already rumblings between the new coaching staff, McDermott and Whaley, and maybe his camp. Those could be accurate. Whaley did buy property in Buffalo as recent as last year, sometime late last year. How sure maybe the agreement was made, and there was also an understanding that he was going to get 17. And then the Sabres situation happens for the Bagulas. That dynamic is so different. We can't underscore that. And maybe they, we can't allow this to happen over on the football side. And given the state the football side has been in for going on 2 decades, we have to quell any and all BS like that. And if that was going on already, yeah, well, that was obviously ended. So I don't mean to keep going back to that. But, wow, if you would have told us all this was going to happen, you can believe it, because we're Bills fans. We're used to just crazy things happening. No coaches as of yet have punched any minors on beaches. No players have gotten into any off-season trouble that we know of or have been reported as of yet. And we're 4 months out from the season, so those are good things. Let's all keep our fingers crossed, knock on wood, and hope that continues. And the Bills made a few small nominal acquisitions. Carl Bradford, one today, linebacker, special teams kind of guy. So, but again, that speaks to they're going to constantly be churning that team, can transition in that team. We're not going to see the end of that at all. That's why I said last video, everybody, a lot of people in pencil. So when we're all, how we all brainstorm sometimes, and people say, even media sometimes, because they have to fill content and stuff talking about projected 53s and all this stuff. Don't even bother with that. Don't even bother. There's probably like 10 more guys that might make this team that aren't even here yet. Given all the kind of stuff that's going to happen. whether it's injury, waivers, a free agent, maybe some claim from a guy we don't even know about yet from another team starts contributing. So let's just, what's fun to do. All right, guys, taking up enough of your time the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate you watching and stuff. Thanks for all the cool comments last time. Bills bottom line, Brandon Beane, so BBB. Wow, no, I kind of messed that up. But so, wow, I don't even know what's going to happen next. As the press conference on Friday, and then next news we'll be all looking out for is really just the filling out of the scouting staff, pro and college side, who the directors of those departments are, what titles will they be given. We know Trey Boston took a visit to the Bills, put out a tweet saying that he was going to make a decision with his wife. That's going to be interesting to see where he decides, given maybe the Bills have an in, given his history with Beane and with McDermott, obviously, as his defensive coordinator. McDermott being a former safety defensive back, I'm sure if he's asking this guy to come in, that he's a player that he likes, because I don't think that he's going to have players in there that aren't going to fit what he's trying to do. So we'll see how that works. Hopefully he signs, because the Bills need defensive. For my money, the Bills need defensive line depth badly, and they need safety depth badly. They need another safety, or they definitely need another safety. I say they need if they can sign Boston, and then wait, and maybe. And another thing the Bills have done awesome too that they haven't even restructured any contracts, so they haven't pushed up any money until next year. They're just, McDermott is just really saying, you know what, we're gonna suffer now to prosper later. So if they can get Boston in, and then slowly but surely start to, maybe pick and pluck some guys that they can like and use on that defensive line rotation, that'll really start to help things going forward. Also, Gary Barnidge took a trip to the Bills last week sometime, and we're still waiting on news from him. Maybe he signs. I do know the Bills are in the market for a tight end, so hopefully he's somebody they can get on a nice deal, a little one-year deal, maybe with a second-year option, something to that effect. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, Bills fans, hopefully everything's on the uptick, and we could start just, instead of talking about this, we could just talk about football games, winning football games, good football, quality football, cohesive football, organized football, not dissension and dysfunction and strife and infighting and all that kind of other BS and all this off-field drama, So let's just keep our fingers crossed and knock on wood. You guys have a great rest of the week. Let me know what you guys think, your thoughts, your opinions, feedback on the hire, how you feel everything's been going so far in terms of all the changes he's made, big, little, small, medium, whatever you feel like talking about. Personnel wise, where do you think they should and shouldn't go? Do you like Boston? Do you like Barnidge? If not, why? If yes, why? I think the connections obviously are clear. Even Barnidge has a Carolina history. So again, we're just kind of in a holding pattern right now. We'll see. I know the Bills get a little extra money on June 1st because of the Aaron Williams release, and then they really haven't done any tweaking of their roster because rookie minicamp starts Friday, and I know they have to make some releases. They have to make some releases and some tweaks. We'll see how those go. I'm sure they're going to make some additions too. Maybe some claims that we don't know about that haven't come down the wire just yet, or whatever transactions they do or don't make, we'll see. And I think we'll get shocked. I definitely think we'll get shocked by one or two transactions that happens going into the season, whether a guy currently on the roster or a guy that they get there's going to be one or two of those that's like, whoa. Most likely a release. Most likely a release. All right, Bills fans, have a good rest of the week. Thanks for watching and take care.